Sometimes life goes a little off course. That's why you need a podcast host that can go a little off topic. This is the podcast that will give you straight talk about everything life throws at you. Welcome to another episode of Off Topic with Tom Powell. And here he is. This is Tom Powell.
There. Brother Tom, how are you, man?
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good. Really honored to meet you via Zoom, at least.
Likewise. I love what you do, man.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
I really enjoy the content, which is, I don't know if you know anything about what I do here, or if you listen to my other podcast. My other podcast is all of that political stuff. And over here, I just talk about people who interest me and what they do, how they do it, their life experiences, which is why I wanted to have you on. I dig what you do.
That's cool.
None of this has to be political in any way, shape, or form. I really want to talk about the things you do, the things you know, the things you've seen, the things you got coming up, and Chicago kind of as a whole, sort of, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, right on. So
let me let my wife know and be out of potty for a second.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Take a picture so she know I ain't just ditching the kids for nothing. All right.
You're not going to be with me because that fucking hairy son of a bitch.
No, but you know, I'll be like, I'm researching, doing something like that, and she's like, no, go feed them little crumb snatchers. So I'm just what do they call that? Proof of life.
Yeah. So just so that you under what we're gonna do here, I'm gonna capture the audio for my podcast. Okay. And I might use like a couple minute snippet to like tease people on TikTok to go listen to the podcast. But this is more of an audio podcast. I like to do it in Zoom because I like to actually see the people I'm talking to. You know what I mean?
And Zoom, I don't know how they figured it out, but like the audio saving and the transcribing is really, it sounds good. I don't know.
It does. It just works. So that's why I like using the platform the best. So
yeah. I'm with you.
Anyway, I guess where I would like to begin in a conversation with you is, how did you get started doing Chicago history? Like how does one get into becoming I think you call yourself an urban historian, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. How tell me how that all starts.
It's like a two-parter. I've been in love with like Chicago history my whole life. My old man was a Chicago policeman for 32 years. My mom was a nurse at University of Chicago. We're all like public school educated kids. My mother's side of the family comes to Chicago about 1928. And that's just like all they talked about. Both my mom and my dad, the famous people that lived here. And, Muhammad Ali walking down 63rd Street. And my dad was cool with like members of the Dales. He knew the 5 stair steps that sing Ooh Child. He just knew so many, his dad knew people like Sam Cooke. And so like you hear these stories of these people and it's like, they didn't live here. You're full of shit, And then you do the research and you're like, oh my God. And so then it becomes like, what else went on here? And then it took like for TikTok for me to figure out that I'm a historian and this is what I should have been doing my whole life, because I've never been the type of person that like saw a sign on a building and didn't want to read it. My mother and father would be half the block up. They turn around and I'd be still there reading this thing that they just walked by. Or, I grew up on 81st and Troop. And forever, I wanted to know, like, who in the hell is Troop? And it's Throop. And one, why is it pronounced that way? But two, why in the hell does he get a street, right? What I got to do to get a street? So I've been like a history nerd forever. How did I get to be urban historian? Man, it was being stuck in the house during the pandemic. And my kids wanted to do TikToks, and I ain't much of a dancer. I'm sure you remember the early TikTok with all the father-daughter dances and all the little dance challenges. And my wife came to me and she was like, you should tell Chicago stories on TikTok with your baby, right? With me and my kids. And I was having a hard time getting them in front of the camera, or when they get in front of the camera, they want to BS around, they want to tell the story. So I really told a couple, hoping that I would convince them to do it. And the reception was like, oh man, I didn't know that. Tell another one. And I just kept telling them, and here we are.
Interesting. Now, you grew up in the city, obviously. You're raising your kids in the city. You said where you grew up. Where do you live? North side, south side?
I'm a South Sider. I live in Auburn Gresham. Yeah, Auburn Gresham neighborhood, really close to like Saint Sabina Church. Still live over here. I bought a house like maybe 5 blocks from the house I grew up in. My dad was a West Sider. My mom was a South Sider. And yeah, raising a family here and all that.
You really are married to the city. I mean, it is part of it's in your veins.
Yeah, my day job, I work for the light company here in the city, right? I work for Commonwealth Edison. Yeah. Started off as a meter reader and worked my way up to a high voltage switchman. So even that like gave me this really intricate view of the city, because most of the meters are in people's backyards. And so there are some blocks where you can get to all the meters through the alleys. There are some blocks where you got to knock on every door and get one of the grandmas to unlock the gate to let you in. There are some houses, like townhouses in tandem, right? So you can get 2-3 meters at once. And so I've literally probably walked down, it's 8,000 blocks in Chicago. I've easily been down about 5,000 of them, right? Over the course of just working for the light company. So I've seen and touched and smelled so much of the city. It really is a part of me.
Not to get off on just a brief detour from a normal conversation here about the history of Chicago. Southsider, am I to take it you're a Sox fan? Yeah, you are. Sorry. Sure. I didn't even notice the hat. I didn't even notice the goddamn Sox fan. Oh.
I was a
Cubs fan. We're Cubs fans, but here's the deal. I'm more of a football fan than I am a baseball fan. So if you guys do great, aces, you know what I mean? But I'd rather see my Cubbies on top.
I was so my grandpa was a Cubs fan, and a lot of people became Cubs fans because of WGN, right? It was the fourth national broadcast, and they had the Cubs and Bulls. And so I was a Cubs fan to that 1989 season. And when them fools didn't win the pennant, despite having one of the best teams in baseball, I came home and I tore down my Mark Grace poster and it was a Ryan Sandberg poster. My dad was like, we live on the South Side anyway, dude. And then what happened that summer, they drafted Frank Thomas. And I was like, okay, I could get with this.
The Big Hurt made a lot of difference on the South Side.
Oh my goodness, yes, sir.
All-time legend. Now, how old are you? Were you old enough to live to the Jordan years?
Oh yeah, man. Some of the greatest. The man's passed on, so I can't get him in any trouble. But back in the Chicago Stadium days, if a cop flashed his badge, the security just let him in. And so we were at a lot of those games through the Jordan era, both the Stadium and United Center. It got a little stringent after that third title. When he came back again, you couldn't really do that anymore. But for that first 3, we were standing room only for a lot of Bulls games, man. So it was one of my favorite memories on earth is that first title was my brother's 21st birthday. And him and my dad walked down the street to watch that final game. And it was the first time my dad had a drink with his oldest boy as an adult. And then the Bulls won. And I remember watching them leave and watching them come back celebrating. That is seared in my brain, man. So for sure, hell yeah, I was around for the Jordan era. Yeah. I'm 42.
Before what?
I said I'm 42.
Okay, 42. All right, so you're 9 years younger than I am. Yeah, people outside of the Chicagoland area, and even so, like when I had my landscape company, I had a couple of younger guys that were in college and were working for me on their summer break. Even they didn't fully grasp because you cannot put into words what it was like to live during the Jordan era. How every single throwaway Tuesday game was like Game 6 of the NBA Finals because you never knew what you were going to see. It was excitement. It was electric. It was like, no, the regular season could have been that fun. No, it was that fun. It was a show. Everywhere they went, the ticket prices jumped. The arena sold out because everybody wanted to see the triangle. They wanted to see Phil. They wanted to see Michael. They wanted to see. It was like the Beatles on tour for the better part of a decade.
And the cool thing about Mike, I don't want to say anything about Mr. Pippen, but he wasn't really as accessible as Mike. I grew up around the corner from Foster Park, and I'm about a mile and a half away from Kennedy King College. And during the off seasons, Mike and his boys would go play the JUCO kids at Kennedy King, right? They would take like Michael Finley and Kevin Garnett and young Bobby Simmons, and they would go run pickup games. And so you'd be walking to the parks in Pee Wee baseball, and no exaggeration, you'd see like a Corvette, and you knew like, oh, and then there'd be so many cars in the grass because everybody picked up the payphone. It was a payphone days. Hey, George's up here playing. And he have his bodyguards and all that, but man, he'd be on 83rd and Loomis, like playing pickup ball. And so you see him do that Jordan walk. And we took it for granted, man. My whole life, I just thought the Bulls won championships. Like you wake up in the morning, you eat your cereal, and when June comes around, you're at Grant Park for a parade, right? Like
exactly.
People wouldn't believe it.
It's like what people in New England feel like with the Patriots.
Yeah, I would imagine so, right?
You know, if the Bears just won Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl, that's kind of as a matter of fact, there's a lot of Chicago stuff I want to talk about. I'm sorry I got onto a sports tangent. I love Chicago sports, but I would dare say that the Bulls transformed the sports scene in this city, in the city of Chicago, from a Bears scene to a Bulls scene, at least for a short period of time. The city was known for the Bulls way more than it was for any of these other legendary teams that go all the way back to the foundations of leagues.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We to your point, I didn't know that the Cubs was that historic to the National League, or that they were founded in the 1800s. You didn't even give a shit about none of those teams until June ended. And then baseball season starts in April. No one in the city could tell you any record or any of that other stuff until after Father's Day, after the championships was over, the playoffs was over. And then you may gravitate to baseball a little bit until the fall. Then it was football until the Bulls kicked off. You know, just like stuff like we knew when the circus was in town. It wasn't because it was the circus. That's because that was the Bulls' road game.
Road trip. The Western road swing.
Yeah, so that's when you see the LA games. You get to see them play Sean Kemp. You get to see them play Kevin Johnson with Phoenix, right? You know, we weren't looking forward to going to the circus. We looking forward to the circus coming so we can see our Bulls kick the West Coast's ass.
And people nowadays don't understand that nobody gave a fuck about the Blackhawks back then. They weren't winning anything, and they wouldn't even show the games on TV because the words were such cheap asses. They wanted everybody in the seats, so you couldn't even turn on the TV and see a Blackhawks game in the Chicagoland area, and it was our fucking team.
Yeah, I don't have any memories as a kid. I knew the players. Like I said, sometimes my brother worked for Andy Frame, so if he had to babysit me, I just be in there like watching the Blackhawks or something like that. So that's where I learned the Eddie Belfours and learned the players. But it certainly wasn't on TV. That's for damn sure.
No, hell no. The Wirtz really screwed that up. The kid turned it around though a lot. I saw a video you did recently with Jeffrey Bear.
Yes, sir.
And I know that a lot of people outside the Chicagoland area are going to go, who the hell is Jeffrey Bear? For the folks listening that are outside the Chicagoland area, Jeffrey Bear is the guy you turn to in a lot of cases to learn about the city of Chicago. He does these great programs on public broadcasting here on Channel 11, Window to the World, WTTW here in Chicago. And he does like river tours and architecture tours and history of this area and history of that area. I have been watching Jeffrey Bear for years. I absolutely love his content. What was it like to meet and have an opportunity to talk with arguably a massive Chicago legend?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's one that was like what do I want to say? Respectable historians and academic types have been like, no, I can tell you know what the hell you're talking about. But to have Jeffrey Bear say it, it was like having a knight touch my shoulders with the swords, right? Like that's an unbelievable compliment to have him want to feature me, and just to say that I know him personally. And I got a lot of the Chicago history that I initially started with on my TikTok channel. A lot of that stuff I learned from Jeffrey Bear, right? Like you say, Chicago by air, Chicago by train. I've never. Most people who pay for a PBS subscription or support the channel, they do so because of Jeffrey Bear. And to hear his origin story, it's like history doesn't repeats itself, because he started off as a docent for the architectural boat tour, and he just happened to be given a tour one day. And the way that he had stories for every buildings and his personality, it was an executive from WTTW on the boat taking his wife that day. He's like, "Oh my God, you're brilliant. I got to give you a show." And so to hear that that's his origin story, same thing, kind of like me, right? Just messing around on TikTok, you never know who's watching. And I made a TikTok, and this guy named Chris, who's a writer for the Tribune, happened to catch one of them. He's like, "Hey man, I want to interview you." He came over and he sat with me for like 4 hours. He watched me make a video. He had a photographer take pictures, and they ended up running that story on the front of the Chicago Tribune. And it's been like gangbusters ever since.
You never know what's going to be the thing that launches it, right? You never know.
Yeah. It's been absolutely crazy, man.
Yeah. I never in a million years thought I would have 1,000 followers on TikTok, right? I'm just this cranky old fucking hairy man that screams about politics into his phone. And then one day I'm driving in my car. I know I don't remember when, but I know it's wintertime. There's snow on the ground outside in the video. I'm wearing a hoodie in my car. And I have got my phone on my dash, and I just hit record as I'm driving. And I just go on this tangent about something, and I'm just ranting and raving and pissing and moaning. And I hit stop, and I upload it to TikTok. And I wake up the next morning, and it has 18,000 views. And I was like, well, I never in a million years thought that. And in a 5-day period following that, I put on 120,000 followers.
See?
And I went, wow, of all the shit, me yelling into my phone while I'm driving, that's what, I mean, that just, and everybody was like, that I was off to the races. So yeah, you never know. And TikTok is just such insane organic growth.
Yeah. It really is.
People are like, well, you get paid from TikTok. No. Well, you promoted your videos. No. I just recorded some videos, and then they just take off. And I'm sure you experience the same thing. You put a video out there, and you're like, holy shit, it got 30,000 views.
Yep. It went exactly like that. Just making videos, 1,000 views, 2,000 views. I think I did Lower Wacker Drive. I talked about Lower Wacker Drive, and same thing, man. I went to sleep and woke up and had like 80,000 views and 30,000 followers. And I'm like, yo, this might be something I need to keep doing. And then I told the story of Dibs and how we leave stuff in the street when we shovel our stuff out. And that thing did like 500,000 views. The same thing. It was just like a cascade. And to anyone listening, I don't know. I hear that the new TikTok pays a little more. The algorithm ain't as pure, in my opinion, as it used to be on TikTok once, in 2023. But initially, it wasn't a lot of money. So anybody thinking that you made some money off TikTok is crazy, right? It was not a lot of money at all. But what's been crazy for me is I started a tour company based off of TikTok, and that's been pretty successful.
Yeah, and the tour company is something I wanted to talk about. How is that going, and where do you do tours of? Is it all over, or is it a set route?
So we do everything but downtown, right?
Okay.
I'm avoiding downtown purposely because one is already a ton of tour operators operating downtown, so they don't need me. But I really feel like people who aren't from Chicago think that that's all Chicago is. It's either downtown or get shot outside of downtown, right? Which irritates my soul. So I do Bronzeville, I do Bridgeport, I do Pilsen, I do Chinatown, I do Uptown, I do Edgewater, I do North Lawndale.
How do you determine where you go? Is it a rotating schedule?
Yeah, I try to rotate it. Sometimes it's thematic, right? So in March, St. Patrick's Day, we're going to do a lot of Bridgeport, right? Because that's where the Irish settled in Chicago. In September, that's Labor Day, so we're going to do Pullman because of the history of the Pullman strike and the Pullman porters and that labor movement. You know, it's Black History Month. We're going to be in Bronzeville. Dr. King was here in Chicago for 2 years, and he lived in North Lawndale on the west side. So for January, we're going to do North Lawndale and a little bit of Chinatown for Lunar New Year. So it's that, you know, I try to like be thematic with the month, but then also, yeah, it's a rotation. So, you know, I do 2-3 weekends in one neighborhood, and then I'll move on to another neighborhood. I just sell the tickets on my website. And then during the week, I take tours, schools on tour, schools, universities, sometimes like corporations want to do corporate outings. And then I just let them pick. I just give them a list and I say, hey, what do you want to see? And they tell me.
So do you also do like, in addition to the history of Chicago and some sightseeing, you're like, and that's Obama's block, and that's where the dailies, like you point out like famous people.
Famous people. It's really, really immersive. Right? And I don't want to blow my own stack in front of your to your listening audience, but it's a really unique Chicago experience. Because one, I'm defining the neighborhood, right? Why is this Chinatown? Who forced the Chinese Americans to this neighborhood? And how did it build up from that? If we're on Cermak, who the hell is Cermak? Why is it named Cermak? But then also, yes, we do architecture, right? Hey, this is, you know, Victorian era. This got built 1920. We talk about the Chicago common brick. We point out famous people who lived in these particular areas. Sometimes, you know, I try to stay away from the infamous so much, but some stories, you know, you got to tell. So if something infamous happened on that block or in that neighborhood, we talk about that too. The tours are like 2 hours. I got a luxury motor coach, so folks jump on.
It looks nice. Looks
Thank
nice,
you.
man. You have a staff working for you, or is it just you?
I wouldn't call it a staff, a micro small team. We don't even got enough to play a baseball game if we had to. It's about 5 of us. Admin person, I got a driver, and then I got a couple of my buddies that I went to college with, and they basically keep me from spending all our money.
Right on. So, of all of these places, you said you've been through 5,000 of the 8 or 9,000 blocks in Chicago, or I forget the exact number that you threw out. My apologies. What's your favorite part of the whole city? Like what part of your city just gets to you? And I know that, listen, for anybody listening, just because a Chicago tour guide tells you he's got a favorite spot doesn't mean that he doesn't like the rest of the spots.
Amen.
Everybody always thinks that you're shitting on everything else if you say you like this one the best.
Which is the terriblest part about this new world that we live in. You can't compliment nothing without complimenting everything and shit. Anyway.
Exactly.
I'm very much in love with the Beverly and Morgan Park area as one area. It's unique. The houses are nice. They're huge. The lawns are picturesque. They're also got like regular bungalows on some blocks too. So that'd be probably one of my favorites. And then what I call the Ellis Island of Chicago. I love Uptown, man. I love Uptown so much. Great old houses, big houses, small houses, but Chicago is historically segregated as hell. You know,
hell yeah.
It used to be the most segregated city in America. It's probably still top 2 or 3. They say Milwaukee's number 1 last time I checked. But Uptown is the only place in Chicago where like there's a Cambodian dude living next to a dude from Nigeria, living next to a dude from Vietnam, living next to a Polish dude, living next to an Irish dude, living next to a black dude, and all on the same block. So you get that flavor. And I think I would round off the top 3 with Bronzeville. And not just because, I'm a handsome black guy, right? But Bronzeville, historically, man, you can put it up against any neighborhood in this country. It's where Joe Louis lived when he won heavyweight champion. It's where Muhammad Ali lived when he was here training and he was being managed by Elijah Muhammad's son. It's where Thomas Dorsey and Mahalia Jackson and Red Fox, Nat King Cole, and then even contemporarily, a lot of hip hop cats come from there. The projects got built and knocked down in Bronzeville, so I love that place as well.
Yeah, people don't understand when. Now, listen, I'm not, and I don't pretend to be from the city of Chicago, which is why I use the term Chicagoland as often as possible. I was born in Melrose Park, right outside the city of Chicago. I was raised in North Lake and Addison, right outside the city of Chicago. But when you talk about Chicago being a city of neighborhoods, people don't understand how real that is. That it is not it is a massive expanse of land. It is a city that covers an enormous piece of land, but it quite literally does go neighborhood from. People will go their entire lives living in one neighborhood. They got their neighborhood corner store, they got their neighborhood liquor store, they got their neighborhood pub, and that's where they live, work, and play. They love their neighborhood.
Yeah, you 77 of them that we count here, and I take kids on tours, and a lot of times, they'll be sophomores in high school, juniors in high school, and they live on the South Side neighborhood and never once saw a West Side neighborhood or a North Side neighborhood. At some point, your parents are going to take you downtown for something, right? You might, go Christmas shopping, Easter suit, whatever, bar mitzvah, something, right? Something takes you downtown. But that'll be it. Where you live and go to school and worship is one place, and downtown might be the only other thing. And it's really, really distinct too. Like, and because of that, so segregation sucks. It's not like something to prop up. But coming out of it, the other side of it is these beautiful ethnic enclaves, right? You go to a little village and you think you're in Mexico. Like, so the second you get over there, it's Mexican music and sombreros and cerveza, and it's a great time. Of course, great tacos. You go to Bridgeport, like I said, you might as well open up your car door and play the bagpipes, right? Because it's Irish as hell over there, and that's very unique to Chicago, right?
And Chinatown is Chinatown. I mean,
yes.
It is.
Oh,
when you. So I live in the far southwest burbs. When you get off of 55 and you come down the ramp and you're facing that L station right there on the edge of Chinatown, you're. I had the unique privilege of that. The L station I'm talking about. As you come off of 55. I landscaped that back in the day. I did all the landscaping in front of it. It was a very unique opportunity. I had a chance to work on a few projects in the city, Lake and State. I did a couple of green roofs down there. I did some work just north of the city on Northwestern's campus. But yeah, the distinction. My daughter goes to school at UIC.
Word, yeah.
So she's on the verge of Little Italy. You walk a few blocks and it's safe, paisan. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm telling you, I was just getting ready to say you might as well be on a gondola or something. People from outside Chicago really don't understand it. I was talking to a lady in Chinatown, and she was like, her mother and her mother's mother never left Chinatown. Like, it just did. Like, they worked in the local shop there. They went to school over there. Maybe you might have to go to high school somewhere else if you don't go to a Catholic school or something like that in your neighborhood, because there aren't high schools in every single neighborhood, big ones enough to cover everybody. But aside from that, she was like, even that's just like a straight bus ride down Cermak, then you're right back home. It wasn't, a whole lot of intermingling. And while, like I said, I believe mixture and integration is cool, but I do love the fact that if you go to what we call the Polish downtown on Milwaukee Avenue, people from Poland are like, this feels home. I was talking to the what is he? The guy from the Bulls, AK. Anyway, he's from like Lithuania, and his initials are AK. I can't pronounce the last name, but he's like the general manager for the Bulls. And he said his first day there, they tell he wants a slice of home. He says a guy walks down the street and starts talking to him in Lithuanian. He had to remember that he was in Chicago for a second, right? I love that about our city.
And the neighborhoods are, people have this view of Chicago as being this filthy, rundown, graffiti-filled city. These neighborhoods are gorgeous. They're beautiful. They're like open air art museums in a lot of cases. And yeah, there are neighborhoods that you don't want to go into, just like every other city. But these especially these cultural neighborhoods, Little Village, Little Italy, Chinatown, these places like that. It's like you're stepping into a whole nother country. It's like you're stepping in out here in, I don't know if you ever have a chance to get out to the suburbs. Joliet is a huge, it literally is an open air art museum. There's sculptures and murals purposely dotted throughout the city.
I love Joliet, man.
Is it Little Village with the big flag?
That's Pilsen. I'm sorry, that's Humboldt Park. That's Humboldt Park with the big Puerto Rican flag on Division Street. Yeah,
it's gorgeous. It's wonderful. It's fantastic.
Yeah, the people from Humboldt Park invented the jibarito sandwich, which is like this amazing Puerto Rican cuisine that they serve over in Puerto Rico. But it was Puerto Ricans in Chicago that invented it, right? And that's how much it's Puerto Rico in Humboldt Park, right? It's Division Street between, on both ends of Division Street. There's these. It got to be 40 feet in the air if it's anything. And they're huge. If you can Google the flags from Humboldt Park, and you'll see what we're talking about. And in between those flags, not a lick of English is spoken. You gotta find somebody to help you translate if you're gonna go in there. You asada, right? You better know how to order your food, because you ain't getting no English over there. But it's so cool, man. I really appreciate that. And I know somebody's listening to this going to say something about the violence here, and I appreciate you mentioning that. This ain't the Matrix. We don't walk down the street dodging bullets all day. When I do the tours, somebody, especially tourists, they always ask me about the violence. And not to cheapen anyone's life, or I think if someone gets shot, it sucks. But I always say, if I owe you 2.6 million on Chicago's worst weekend, maybe 40 people get wounded, and sadly 10 people lose their lives, right? So 50 people got shot in the weekend in Chicago. And I always tell them, like, hey, if I owe you $2.6 million and I'm going to keep 50 of them, do you bat an eye? And they always say no. And so I said, so why are you fixated on the 50 people who got shot in Chicago when 2.5 million other dudes and ladies went to work and came home and took their dog on a walk and played with their kids? Like, we don't crack the top 10 in any metric that matters when it comes to violence. Not armed violence, not shootings and gangs, none of that, per capita or otherwise, right? It's just a lot of people here. And so, it occurs, but you got to ask yourself, like, why does it occur? Why is East Garfield Park and West Garfield Park so bad? Well, that's because since Dr. King got killed in 1968, there was zero investment from the city of Chicago after he got killed all the way to 2016. Now, what are people going to do if you build nothing? That's not an exaggeration. There was no new housing, no new jobs, no new transportation to get them to the jobs. They cut the street trolleys, cut the buses, put you on an island. I take all your resources from you, and then I'm shocked that you turn into criminality to try to figure it out. Right now, I can't believe you did that. Right? Like, no, the crime didn't happen in a vacuum where there is high crime. And to your point, everywhere ain't high crime here. It's probably percentage-wise, I'd say less than 10% of Chicago is a block you don't want to be on. And it's so block by block. Because even if you go to like Woodlawn, right? Maybe there's a couple blocks in Woodlawn you don't want to be on. But then the rest of them are like these amazing big blocks with these beautiful 2-flat, 3-flat buildings with these long hallways. It's really cool.
It's probably my biggest pet peeve when it comes to misconceptions about the city of Chicago. And I know that there are a ton of misconceptions about the city of Chicago, but the violence part is really the one that, I've had people literally say to me, you step off the plane, you get mugged. You step off the plane, you get shot. I'm like, there's 60 million visitors coming to the city of Chicago every year. You honestly think there's a trail of tens of millions of people? Sports teams, people coming and going. My own daughter at the age of 19 is going to college in the heart of the city of Chicago. And what she's learning right now, as somebody her age that grew up in the suburbs of the city of Chicago, what she's learning right now is about something that you kind of touched on when you said put people on an island, and that is, what is a food island, a food desert? What she is in what can arguably be an affluent part of the city, and even she's got a bit of a walk in order to get to the only grocery store in her area. And she's like, I thought there would be more options down here. I'm like, and you're in a good part of the city, honey.
Yep.
Think about the people that live in the bad part of the city where nobody wants to invest money because the city isn't putting any money into it. So the businesses sure as hell don't want to go there.
Nope.
Think about how far of a walk or a bus ride they have to go in order to get a nutritious bag of groceries.
I tell people, you know what? I'll just ask you, right? What do you think in Inglewood is the number one reason kids go to the burn unit?
Go to the burn unit?
Go to the burn unit.
Space heaters are heating their houses with stoves?
Nope. You would think that the number one reason why kids in Inglewood go to the burn unit is cup of noodles. Because it's easier to go to your gas station and buy a couple noodles than it is to get fresh fruits and vegetables. So I'm just assuming, but when you were a kid, you could probably at most points in your life open your refrigerator and either get an apple, an orange, a grape, a banana, right? Even if you guys wasn't wealthy, there was some sort of fruit or, right? You slice a tomato, throw it on you could do something with a fruit or vegetable. In Inglewood, they are non-existent. But the gas stations always have noodles stocked up. And so everyone, no matter your race or creed, your mama told you, when I leave this house, don't touch the stove. But the microwave ain't off limits. And so those kids who don't have access to fresh fruits, when they want a snack to watch their Netflix, they put a cup of noodles in the microwave for 3 minutes. And when a little man reaches up there to pull it out the microwave and it tips over, it gives them a 2nd-degree burn. You ain't got to listen to the historian who talks on TikTok. You can call University of Chicago burn unit and ask them yourself. That's the number one reason that kids go to the burn unit in places like Inglewood. And that speaks to what you're saying about it being a food desert, right? You can get noodles quicker than you can get fruit. And so that's that. And then what does that do to your psyche, right? Like, you think if everybody tells you are what you eat, well, you're eating this starch-filled, sodium-filled noodles every single day. I just remember, like, the joy of peeling an orange and taking a bite and how that would set my mood. Those kids don't even get that, right? They don't have the luxury of stealing a piece of orange off of mama's plate, right? Or, waiting till mama finish peeling it. And as soon as she got it perfect, you go in there and beg, hey, let me get a couple of those slices, right? Let me get a couple of those grapes, Mom. You rinse them off, they look good. They don't. If you think there's going to be this extreme morality in a space that don't even got grapes, I don't think so. I really don't.
It's done by design back in the day.
Yep.
It's done by design so that these people stay over there and those people stay over there so we can have ours.
Yeah.
And Chicago, one of the reasons why Chicago has a lot of misconceptions behind it is because of the fact that Chicago has been used as an example by people trying to spotlight liberal policies run amok, integration not working. When in actuality, what the people who have been using Chicago as an example of everything not to do in a society, the reason why they've been doing that for 50, 60, 70 years, it, at least the way that I've seen it, is that it's a way for them to go, and I'm sure you're aware of this, obviously. Look at all those black people running amok.
Yep.
That's what the example has always been. Look what happens when you give them freedom. Look what happens when you give them rights. You want our little town to turn into a Chicago, and then you say to those people, "Have you ever been to Chicago?" No. Well, you should probably come, man. We'll go get some tacos. You're going to have a blast.
I don't know how you felt about NASCAR, but what you're speaking to, I got because of my TikTok, NASCAR reached out and I did some content for them, and I took some of the NASCAR exec folks on a tour when they came and did that street race last summer. Mm-hmm. And so I was lucky enough to score some tickets. And if you recall, it got rained out a little bit, and so it ended up with all the NASCAR fans in their hotel lobbies. And for lack of a better term, I don't mean it in a derogatory, but what folks would quote unquote call a redneck or call that kind of stuff is typically like your NASCAR fan base. And my heart was beating with so much joy because all I heard was, man, I had this place wrong. Man, because they had been painted this picture, and then they come to Chicago to check out a race, and they came by the hundreds of thousands. And one, where was the reporting that nothing happened to anyone who came to Chicago to check out NASCAR? Not nothing. People drove, people flew in, people took buses, people took the train. They didn't get carjacked. They didn't get shot waiting in Harold's Chicken to get their food, on the way to that. None of that happened. And that speaks to what our city really is about. So I'm happy that NASCAR is coming back. Now, I know shutting down downtown streets, and I'm not in the setup of it, right? I'm sure that there's a better way to do things than impede people's ability to get to work and shut down bus lines and all that. Like I say, I'm not involved in the planning. But what I love is that it's going to expose Chicago to a group of people who would never come to Chicago any other reason than to come for NASCAR.
Okay, so speaking of events and drawing people to the city of Chicago, what are your thoughts on the Bears potentially moving out of the city? And I know that they're now looking at the South parking lot as a potential spot for a dome stadium. But what are your thoughts on Arlington Heights Bears? Man,
I'm sure people was liking me until we get to this point. I ask people all the time, if the game starts at noon, and you're standing on the corner of Roosevelt and Michigan at 11 a.m., are you going to be in your seat on time? And the answer is no. Whether you're in Uber, whether you're walking, you can't. It's like it bottlenecks so much right there because they allowed for them to build all those condos and high rises to the west of the stadium. And so that shut down your ability to make that a parking lot, shut down your ability to make it a hotel, or like Wrigleyville is the perfect example. If you're close, you're going to be on time because they laid it out to make it better with those advancements for you to get to the ballpark. So I think unless we seriously consider a better alternative for the Bears, they might not have no choice but to leave. And then what you may know that a lot of other Chicagoans don't know is that in our city charter, it's illegal to build on the east side of Lakeshore Drive. We have this thing in our charter called the free and clear. So the entirety of the lakefront, you must have access to. And so they can't, the Friends of the Parks and other conservation groups are going to sue them if they try to build on the east side of Soldier Field, or if they try to build on the east side of Lakeshore Drive. It's not going to happen. It's gone all the way to the highest courts that it's illegal because of the city charter. So I hope that they can build on the South lot. But if they got to leave, I would be sad. I don't want to call them the damn Arlington Heights Bears. I don't want to drive 2 hours to the game. I don't want to do any of that. But from a logistics point of view, I understand that they're kind of boxed in. What they should have did was put the damn dome on Soldier Field when they put the spaceship on it. They should have just put the dome on it then and call it a day. Soldier Field is the first property in American history to take itself off the National Registry of Landmark Places. The original one was a national landmark, And when they put that spaceship on top, it took away that landmark status, which took away some of the other protections that they could have used. They should have just domed it then. So I wouldn't be happy to see him leave, but it's a nightmare if you're trying to go to that game if you ain't down there by 10 a.m. You have to go tailgate.
My wife has taken our daughters to a few concerts at Soldier, and I remember they were going to one concert, and they were just sitting on Lakeshore Drive about a block from the stadium. And my oldest daughter went, "I'll meet you in the stadium," and hopped out and walked the rest of the way. And my wife and other daughters still had to take a significant amount of time to get to the park, to an area where they can park and actually get inside. And I agree with you about the bottlenecking. Now, I was a Bears fan when I was young. I am not a Bears fan anymore. I believe that the ownership of the Chicago Bears has lost my fandom, because I believe that the Chicago Bears are the flagship team of the NFL. Without Papa Hallis, there is no NFL. They're an original team. They are the NFL. And the ownership has gotten so cheap over the years, and it's cut corners so much over the years, that they have failed to put a product worthy of the city and the fandom of the fan base out there, that I can't be their fans anymore. Having said that, in my opinion, moving them off of the lake, it's going to lose the Bears lore. The Chicago Bears are supposed to play in the elements on the lakefront with the swirling wind and the fog bowls and all of that stuff. And it's not to say that they wouldn't have the same winter element if they played in an outdoor stadium in the suburbs, or a stadium that had a retractable roof in the suburbs. It's just not going to be the same Bears that we know. The monsters of the Midway are not supposed to play in a dome in Arlington Heights.
Then there's that. I don't got no. It'd be very hard to picture. I think that's why they're pivoting. I'm sure a lot of people like you are writing in and emailing in like, hey, you're gonna lose a family of fans, because it is like the loyal Bears fans that's keeping them rolling. It ain't like they winning championships and getting national endorsements. It's that kind of national money. The NFL supports Green Bay and the Patriots, and the Cowboys, right? Those are where the NFL parks a lot of its money and support. It certainly ain't the Bears. So I'm with you.
The NFL only gave a shit about the Bears when the Bears had Walter Payton, Jim McMahon, the best defense ever assembled, and William Perry. And for that few years, they were as big as the Bulls. I mean, they were everywhere. They were doing music videos and appearing on late night talk shows, and then it just fell off. And things have been, needless to say.
We sung Super Bowl Shuffle at my kindergarten graduation. That's how serious. They got the school kids singing. That's how serious that thing was.
Yeah, it was. Oh, that was everywhere. I remember politicians doing the Super Bowl Shuffle on the national level. So I hope they find a way to stay. I know about the east side of Lake Michigan. It is meant to be. For people that don't know, for people outside the city of Chicago that don't know, everything east of Lakeshore Drive is sort of meant to be Chicago's front yard. And therefore they don't want anybody building on it, because they want to have this beautiful front yard. And it is, for people that have not been and have not had a chance to get up and see the beaches and the parks along the lakefront. When people talk about the beaches and lakes, they instantly go to Lake Street Beach, North Avenue Beach, beaches from the downtown area and north. But what people fail to understand is that from Ogden south, there is some beautiful lakefront.
Oh, my goodness. I love South Shore. Probably one of my favorites. It's down by 71st. And again, for those who don't know, the entire 26.4 miles of Lake Michigan's lakefront is free and open to the public, right? It's unimpeded. You can run from the top of Chicago's boundary all the way to the southern boundary along the lakefront. You won't run into anything. There's beaches, bike paths, and you see the workout dudes, and they got equipment. They put the workout equipment out there. They got skate parks if you're into skating. And I can't think of another American city where the lakefront is open like that. So, everything else, right, they throw lakefront property right there, and then it becomes private property because people want to live off the lake and I'm thinking like places like Lake Geneva or like New York in the Hudson River or like Miami, right?
Miami along the beach. That's what came to my mind. It's the high rises on Miami are on the beach.
Yeah.
There is no green space between. And what a lot of people don't realize about that lakefront, and I know you know it, is early on, it was the least desirable part of Chicago. It was shantytown. It was where the dregs of society lived, and train tracks going over the wetlands along the lakefront. And it wasn't until people realized, holy shit, we have this amazing Montgomery Ward was instrumental in making sure that we had this beautiful space that the entire city of Chicago could enjoy. And just and people go, Montgomery Ward, you mean the store? Yes.
Yes.
People don't understand how many major things and people came from. It's not just Oprah Winfrey, Al Capone, and Michael Jordan. No. I mean, the city of Chicago.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You brought up Montgomery Ward, right? It's Aaron Montgomery Ward, and that store of Montgomery Ward's gives the world Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right? That concept comes from that store. Man, you're so well versed in it, brother. Because a lot of people, we refer to Montgomery Ward as the watchdog of the lakefront. Right now, today, 2023, there's an endowment that's accruing money that somebody's managing, and its sole purpose is to sue you if you try to build on the lakefront, right? That's what he left, and it's been twice that they've taken those cases all the way to the Illinois Supreme Court, so that we have that green space, and it's breathtaking. And in the summertime, everybody around the world knows about Summertime Shy. It's they're on their boats and on their jet skis and all that other kind of stuff on the lake. But, you get a little further south and it's quieter. It ain't so packed. The beaches are clean because it ain't 1,000 people on them. This is a really, really great place. Like I said, working for ComEd, we got everything from Pontiac to the south, all the way to Wisconsin on the north. Iowa to Indiana is the ComEd territory. So, I get down to Joliet quite a bit, not so much since I've been doing all this content stuff and doing the bus tours, but I did a couple of Route 66 tours. Route 66 starts in Chicago. It runs through Joliet. So that's about as far south. And I love that place, man. I love telling people the original name of Joliet. I love telling people that Dairy Queen comes from Joliet. People don't know that at all.
At one point in time, Joliet supplied 93% of the world's wallpaper, and Joliet limestone was considered highly desirable. There's actually some Joliet limestone in Washington, D.C. They switched to Indiana limestone because Joliet limestone oxidizes and turns that quote unquote nasty yellow. But like a lot of buildings out here in the Joliet area are made from that Joliet limestone. One of the first automobiles was made in Joliet. Like you said, Dairy Queen originated in Joliet. Here's one that people don't, the older people might know, but the younger people probably don't. Morris the cat. From the TV commercials, the chubby orange cat from the cat food commercials. He was adopted at the Hillside Humane Society in Hillside, Illinois. Yeah, Chicago is full of fantastic history. People always think of the celebrities, actors, and musicians as coming from either New York or LA. They're from the East Coast or the West Coast, and they don't really put a lot of weight into what Chicago has to offer until you start talking about what Chicago has offered up, and you start talking about Coco Taylor and Buddy Guy and Smashing Pumpkins. And I mean,
Lionel damn Richie's from out your way, right?
Yeah, I mean, all of it. I mean, and people don't even realize. A lot of people don't even realize that. I mean, it's not Chicago, but it's still Chicagoland. Michael Jackson, Gary, Indiana. I mean, this is the flavor of Chicago that Chicago has given the world. And listen, I had the extraordinarily rare opportunity when I was younger. I dropped out of high school and I put everything I owned in a big camping backpack and I threw my thumb in the air. And for 4 years, I hitchhiked back and forth across the country living out of a tent. And I've had a chance to get to 38 states before I was old enough to legally have a beer. And while there are a million wonderful cities, I love the city of New Orleans. Denver is one of my favorite places ever. San Francisco is like nothing you've ever seen before. Chicago, there's nothing like it. The only thing Chicago misses is mountains. We've got all 4 seasons. We've got all 4 seasons. We've got wonderful suburbs. We've got an incredible urban area. We've got colleges. We've got universities. We've got sports teams. We've got a lakefront that makes it look like you are literally on the ocean. We've got it all, but the mountains. So there's very few places like Chicago.
5-star restaurants. We got it all, and cheaper than This guy from London just interviewed me. And he was like a travel guy. So he went to New York, he went to LA, went to all these places. And he said when it came time to come to Chicago, he couldn't believe his eyes at what the hotel rates were in the middle of the heart of downtown, 5-star hotels. You for a 3-star in New York, for a 2.5-star in New York, it's gonna cost you every bit of $350 a night, right? $350 a night in Chicago might get you to Waldorf. It's certainly gonna get you something really, really nice at the
really
Palmer.
nice, yeah.
$350 a night, you will have zero complaints. $150 a night to get you a great hotel in Chicago. So all those things you listed, and it's we got Broadway, right? We got some amazing live bands and live music, and at a fraction of the cost of every other place.
And we have a hot dog stand that will insult you while you order.
Yeah, the Wiener Circle.
The Wiener Circle, place like no other. I just wish the parking was better at the Wiener Circle.
Yeah.
I would visit it more often. So you had talked earlier about TikTok, and I'm not going to take up too much more of your time, but I do want to know, before I ask you to tell people how to get a hold of you and your websites and all of that stuff, how has TikTok changed your life?
Oh my God! Well, I just won a regional Emmy from a CBS program I did called Bronzeville, The Black Metropolis and the Unlikely Historian. Hold on, son. My 3-year-old's trying to get in my office. I might as well let him in because he's not gonna stop banging on the door.
It's all good. I love the kids.
You gotta be quiet, okay? Okay. I'll charge your phone. You want to say hello? Okay, you can say hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Okay.
Are you the real Spider-Man?
You Spider-Man?
It's all good. I love the little kids. I've got 4 of my own.
Oh yeah, well, I got you beat. I got 7.
That's it.
Mine are a bit spread out though. I have a millennial, 2 Gen Zs, and a Gen Alpha. 33, 22, 19, and a 12.
I got 25 to 3. Hold on, be quiet 1 second. I'll get you a lollipop in just a second. What did you ask him before the boys broke in?
How did TikTok change your life?
Goodness, TikTok. Man, on the one hand, everything from I'm walking down the street and people recognize me and want to take pictures with me. It's my wife went from having not went to any sports events in Chicago to having sat in a suite at every sporting event here in Chicago. She's
right. It opens a lot of doors, doesn't it?
Oh my goodness, right? It not just that, it's allowed me to. We put $150,000 down on a $300,000 coach bus. It's because of TikTok. I was able to get all the sports teams to put their logos on the side of the bus, and we use that money to put the down payment on the bus. Boy, you're gonna get ready to get put out. You gotta be quiet. It's allowed me to spend more time in the house with the kids, right? Like I said, TikTok isn't making me a bunch of money, but I do content for other people. People are paying me to endorse their Chicago products or their Chicago events or come host it. Or, I do speaking engagements where I've been to Yad Vashem, I've been to Amsterdam, I've been to DC, I'm going to University of South Carolina, I'm going to UCLA to talk Chicago history and give lectures because somebody found me on TikTok. So it's changed my life tremendously.
That's fantastic. At some point in time, we got to get together in person in the city. I would love to meet you, take your hand. But I need you to tell.
You got to come soon because I'll send you the information offline. But me and Thomas Lennon from Reno 911 and other shows, we're going to the Chicago Jazz Showcase. Why don't you meet us there? Have a couple beers, listen to some amazing live jazz with us.
Send me some information. I'll take a look at it.
Yes,
in the meantime, can you just tell everybody how to find you and what you got coming up?
Oh, yes, sir. Well, actually, I'm filming for WCIU Channel 26. We're filming Black History Verified. It'll premiere during Black History Month. I've actually written a pilot that I'm getting ready to pitch to some of the bigger networks. I don't want to say any names in case one buys it and the other doesn't. But you can find me on all platforms, 6 Figure Dilla, the number 6, FIGGA _DILLA. It's the same on all social media platforms. And then, of course, if you're ever in Chicago on the weekends, take one of my tours. You can book those tours at ChicagoMahogany.com, MAHOGANY, ChicagoMahogany.com. And, I'm just going to keep telling Chicago stories and trying to, get the quote from my wife. She's a chemistry teacher by trade. And she said that in chemistry, you have to balance the equation. So whatever you do on one side of the equation, you have to do to the other side to get the answer. And so in Chicago, they only talk about the negative. And so I'm trying to balance that equation by telling the positive and the impactful stories of Chicago to try to better how we're seen in the national media. And I'd appreciate some support in that.
Yeah, man, that is a fantastic what your wife said and the balancing of it. And that's a wonderful way of putting it, man. I appreciate you coming on and talking to me, man, because I love what you do. Don't ever stop talking about Chicago. I love the city, and I think that you do a wonderful job of educating people, man.
Hey, thank you very much, man. I appreciate you, Tom. I appreciate the even when I'm like only agreeing with you 65% of the way, what I know is that your integrity is there. You're not a yes man, and you care about all people. And while that's like cute to say, I'm sure if you saw somebody on the side of the road, black, white, purple, green, or orange, you're gonna help them, right?
Absolutely.
And so long as they're not douchebags who think that their humanity is better than someone else's. So good on you, man, for being a truth teller, right? Because a lot of people are scared. Sometimes I want to make a political statement, and as sad as it is and as icky as it makes me feel, I'm like, well, man, I can't say that because then this university won't book me. I got these 7 kids to feed. So the bravery of you, not being hindered by that, when you absolutely could be, right? You could use your platform and be that way, right? It's really, really cool. So thank you, brother.
Well, I do appreciate that. And I will say in closing, for anybody that's listening, the reason why we can be that way, where we can say that all walks of life are truly something to behold, and that we all should be figuring out a way to get along with one another, is product of growing up in an area like the Chicagoland area.
Yes,
so multicultural and diverse as it is. It teaches you that not everybody is like you.
Yep. Amen to that, my brother.
Man, go take care of that youngster. We will talk again soon, and I will send me that information. We'll talk, okay?
Okay, brother. Peace.
Thank you very much, man.
Oh no, thank you. Later.
Bye.